distribution that I warned you about in the weekly time frame and in the daily time frame that was happening near the highs did take place. The question is now, do we form a bottom, bounce off the 20-week moving average, bounce off the 100-day moving average? We're testing the 20-week right now. We're trying to bounce off of it. Violated the 100 period and we got back above it. Do we bounce off these levels or do we break them? And if you bounce, you either have a bullish phase or a topping process, one or the other. But I warned you that we are going to get a sell-off. And again, if we bounce, we could still be forming a larger topping process like we did over here and over here. Still very possible. Dollar pulls back. It helps Bitcoin, but then the dollar pulls back and back tests the trend line that I've been talking about in my videos. Bitcoin can resume volatility at the moment of truth. We're at a make it or break it moment, testing the 20-week, testing the 100-day, testing the trend line, the rising trend line of support. Now quickly, I told you I'm watching the weekly close. We had lost support at the rainbow cloud in the weekly time frame. I told you that has to hold. Ever since we got back above the rainbow cloud right there, we've been bouncing off of it. We bounced off of it here. We bounced off of it here. Bounced off of it here in this range. And then we've been bouncing off of it here. So again, the rainbow cloud acts as support and resistance here in the weekly time frame. Additionally, we've seen the balance of power positive as we bounced off the rainbow cloud. And again, when we went sideways, we got back above critical mass. Critical mass line has been blue, and we found support at it right there. We're trying to find support at it right here. Do you see this? Over here, we got above it and it was resistance. Over here, we got rejection at it, along with the rainbow cloud. So again, the rainbow cloud, critical mass, act as support and resistance over and over and over again. And again, we lost the rainbow cloud, critical mass line turned bearish, balance of power turned negative, and the bears were in control up until this point right here. So again, I told you that I'm watching this level. This is what's going to separate the bulls from the bears. Again, do we bounce off critical mass as we did previously right here? And that was hitting the 100 period moving average. In the daily, do we bounce off critical mass support and our rainbow cloud? And here we violated the rainbow cloud, but we're trying to bounce, and this is the levels I've been talking about. I told you if we take out the rainbow cloud, you got critical mass right below that. And then again, trend line of support that I've been talking about. So I'll be watching the close. Right now we're trying to get a bottoming tail here. And again, we've had some bottoming tails. And again, the bulls have been down here. The bulls have been down here. And the bears have been up here. So again, as the bulls and bears fight it out, will support hold? If support holds, that's bullish. If we break this level, that's bearish. It really comes down to support and resistance. It really does. In the land of critical mass. Live it, love it, learn it. And again, Bitcoin is finding support at our 20-week moving averages. Taking out the 100 period, they're very, very close. 100-day moving average. Gotten back above it. Here it's tagged our 20-week moving average. And again, the 20-week, if you lose it, then it's bearish. And you hold consistently below it. You get above it, it's bullish. If we try to find a bottom here at the 20-week, that's bullish. If we break this level and stay below it, that's bearish. The 20-week moving average, it's acted as support and resistance in the weekly time frame over and over again. So again, we could bottom right here if we can find a bottom around our 20-week moving average, the 100-day moving average. And Bitcoin follows those two moving averages, the 20-week moving average in the weekly time frame, the 100-day in the daily time frame. Losing these levels is bearish. Bouncing off these levels is bullish. All about support and resistance. The Bitcoin daily chart, again, we're bouncing off the support. We have the bull flag pattern, but momentum has to turn back into positive territory. We lost it right here as we lost the 50-day moving average. Okay, we've got rejection at the 50-day, and we couldn't get back into positive territory. Here we turned back down. Now we've got a lower low. Do we rise back up and get into positive territory, or get the dump below the 100 period moving average and break the trend line, or do we bounce off of these levels? Again, we're still on a sell signal. With the cloud, we're still below the 50 period and stalling right now, currently at the 20. Again, I'm bullish. If we can see the trend line hold, we go a little bit lower and we bounce off the trend line, including the shadow, that's bullish. Up the 20-week moving average, that's bullish. But you start breaking these levels, that's bearish, and our 20-week moving average. So again, got to flip these signals back to bullish. Got to flip it back, get above the cloud, get back above the 50 period, the green line right there, and then eventually be able to break out above this level right here for a push higher. A bull flag is forming into the 100 period moving average here and the 20-week moving average in the weekly time frame. So I'm short-term bullish at the trend line of support because I think there's a strong possibility of a Bitcoin bottom at that trend line of support at the 20-week and at the 100 period moving average as we've been in this trading range, which again, we've been going sideways for 2 months, drifting lower, gradually drifting lower, now down 23%. I think you got a good shot of a Bitcoin bottom here if these levels of support that I've talked about, the 100 period and the 20-week moving average and the trend line, if they can act as support. I'm bullish at that trend line of support area. Talked about in my last update. We're at the 57,000 area. And again, I encourage you to watch this video all the way through. You're going to see things you're not going to see anywhere else. You're going to see some pretty amazing stuff. If you watch this video, I saved the best for last. Just quickly, my trading chart for Bitcoin. Again, we lost support here. Critical mass cloud on the intraday chart for Bitcoin. We lost support, got rejection at it. Momentum and the trend are bearish. If we can clear these levels, again, getting above 65,500 to 66,500, you can clear this level, that's going to be a sign of strength. Right now, again, you're breaking down and getting rejection and going down to lower levels, trying to bounce off support. So again, I'm back to being bullish on Bitcoin off of support, but we got to be able to clear these levels of resistance if we're going to go higher for Bitcoin for the short term. My trading chart on Bitcoin, absolutely amazing signals. And again, watch the video all the way through. You want to see some really amazing stuff. Take the time and watch the video all the way through. I encourage you to do that. Remain long on Bitcoin at the 57,000 area, flipping the trades back and forth from bullish to bearish as Bitcoin has been in this trading range. We'll see if we can get a trending move up or a trending move down. If we get the trending move up, I'll stick with the long. We start breaking support, I'll flip back to bearish. But right now I'm bullish on Bitcoin and long at the 57,000 area. Now, one of the problems is that the dollar has had a bullish cross of the 50 and the 200, and we're pulling back on the dollar, and it got a bottoming tail on Friday. It got a hammer candlestick. So again, a larger back test of the downward trend line that broke, then Bitcoin, I can help Bitcoin. But if we start bouncing here off of the 100 and the 50, then Bitcoin can lose the 100 period moving average and lose key support here, horizontal support, bearish. That's what I keep saying. We're at the line in the sand. Either we're going to break down or we're going to bounce off these levels. And it's the moment of truth for Bitcoin. So I'll be watching the dollar, but we're getting a hammer. We're getting a bounce off of the 50 here in the daily. We had that bull flag, but again, more often than not, there is a negative correlation between the dollar and Bitcoin. It's not perfect. There are short periods of decoupling, but more often than not, and again, right here, we've had this sell-off of Bitcoin as the dollar has risen back up. Correlation is not perfect, but again, as the dollar rose up previously over here in the summer months of 2023, the Bitcoin corrected, the dollar dropped, Bitcoin had an advance. Bitcoin corrected, the dollar rose. And again, here, I think I said Bitcoin had Bitcoin advanced, the dollar declined. So again, the negative correlation, here we saw the sell-off, here we saw the rise. Correlation is not perfect. There are short periods of decoupling. The question now is, do we bounce off the 50, the 200, or get a bigger back test for Bitcoin? And again, do we get a short period of decoupling as well? They possibly both bounce. Dollar was down 0.84% for the week. It was down after breaking the downward trend line previously, breaking above horizontal resistance overhead, and we're testing that horizontal resistance. If we get a bigger back test of the broken trend line, that would help Bitcoin for the short term and go back to this rising trend line right here and this trend line where they intersect. Okay, that would help Bitcoin for the short term, establish a short-term bottom. If we bounce off horizontal support here and the 50-day moving average I just showed you, then the dollar can make its way to build momentum to try to go up here. Now, if the dollar goes sideways, okay, look at what happened when we busted up through this high. We went sideways. We went higher, we went lower, and again, if we get this sideways kind of chop, again, that could also possibly help Bitcoin rebound if the dollar becomes trendless. So just something to be paying attention to, this horizontal support level. Again, Bitcoin could go higher if the dollar goes sideways or if it corrects. So do keep that in mind. The dollar starts bouncing and we start clearing this level, that's going to be bad for Bitcoin. When we broke out over here previously, we saw Bitcoin and the NASDAQ both peak, and eventually we saw the dollar surge and both of them drop significantly. Bitcoin 78%, NASDAQ 37.5%. We still may see a topping process, and again, the question right now, is Bitcoin in a topping process? Is it in a new bull phase? The dollar would suggest it's not in a new bull phase, but in a topping process. But can we get another rally if we backtest or go sideways here on the dollar? We did see the stochastic roll over here with that sell-off this week on the dollar. So again, this could help Bitcoin if the dollar pulls back or goes sideways. But again, the breakout of the trend line very well could get a back test if we start dropping below horizontal support. Now, Bitcoin's been in a trading range, going sideways, but gradually drifting lower. It's now dropped 23%, over 23%, but rebounding. We've been range bound between 59,000 and 73,000. Again, I played the short side, watched to see if we would break right here. Again, we did not. It was a short at the 60,000 area, flipped to long. Watched to see what would happen up here. Bring up my moving averages here. Again, I talked about how we stalled at the 50 period. We went up to the 20. We tried to get above it, and we failed right below the 50 period moving average. Did we get rejection right there? And again, here, we couldn't bounce off the 10 period moving average. So again, close a long position for a small gain, flip back to short, and then wrote it down. Again, I was looking to come down to the trend line. We hit it. I told you I was looking to flip the trade around the 56 or 57,000 area. That's where the trend line came into play. So I took profits at the 57,000 area. After breaking 56, we couldn't keep going. Flipped the trade again. So back to long, just going back and forth in this trading range. And so far, it's been playing out. Again, just playing the support and resistance levels back at the 72, 73,000 area that we were going to go down. A big flash crash style drop. We dropped immediately, rebounded that back up, got the lower high, and then dropped further. Ended up dropping over 19%, but then rebounded and stalled at that 50 period moving average. So again, and then, by the way, flipped it back to a bullish position with the sell-off here, and again, we ended up rallying up. By that day, we ended up being up 0.85%. We ended up closing at the 59,000 area, just above 59,000 there, and then we had a big surge the very next day, 6.5%. We were closing at 62,915, so just under 63,000 as of yesterday, and then currently we're above 63,000. At the 63,500 area, just below it, up another 0.87%. And we're testing what? The 20 period moving average again. Look at this. Here, we dropped below it. We tried to get above it. Couldn't do it. It failed. Here, we tried to get above it. After dropping below the 50, it failed. Here, we came down. We tried to get back above it right there. And again, it failed. And we dropped back down. You can't bust them up. You're going to bust them down. And right now, we're trying it again. Sellers have been at the 20 period moving average. So again, what I'll be watching is, does Bitcoin bottom out here? Does this low now hold? Okay. Again, if you take this level out and you drop back below the 100, that's a pink line right there, and stay below it, that's going to be very bearish. If you can't stay above the 100 period. Here we've dropped below it and got back above it. Remember, I've talked about this 100 period moving average at great length and detail. So again, that's a line in the sand in my mind, because Bitcoin follows a 100 period moving average. So if we start dropping below this level, time to get out of dodge. If we start dropping below this level, taking up this level, you're going to get a bigger drop. But if we drop back below the 100 period again and get a higher low, maybe at this trend line right here, and have the low here hold, dip slightly below it and hit this trend line right here, which includes the shadow. This one that we bounced off excludes the shadow, which I'll show you. Then again, coin can bottom, and we can make an attempt to go back up to the upper boundary of the channel of our potential bull flag. And if you do that, say you come back here and you get a higher low or a lower low, and one of those scenarios, and then you come back up and attempt a breakout that can give you a legitimate bull market. If you can clear 69,000, stay above it, which we have failed to do. It failed here, and it failed here. 1, 2, 3 strikes and you're out. If we try it again, and you can stay above the 69,000 area and never drop back below it throughout the balance of the bull cycle, then that would be bullish. If we get above that level and it fails, you get above this high right here, you can form a massive topping process. Still very possible. We test the highs. The S&P 500 is likely going to go back at some point and test 5,200. It may get a bigger sell-off first at the line in the sand. You know, Bitcoin's at the trend line. Well, the S&P is at the trend line. Bitcoin's trying to bounce off the trend line. The S&P is trying to bounce off the trend line. I mean, S&P is following Bitcoin. So now what's going to happen? Well, and by the way, they're both testing the 100 period moving average. Bitcoin just violated it. The S&P came to it. Again, if Bitcoin tries to bottom out, the stock market will likely try to bottom out. If Bitcoin takes out the 100 period, stays below it, stock market is likely going to follow Bitcoin lower. So the question right now is, first of all, is this area at the trend line going to hold? Are we going to bounce off the 100 period or break it and take it out? Right now we're bouncing. Are we going to get a lower high, lower low, which we do have, and be unable to make new highs, establishing this as a top, end up breaking the 100 period, or are we going to bounce off this level and go up and make a top, complete a topping process, or do we go up and try to establish a new bull market by getting above 69,000 and never dropping below it? Now, one thing I think that will help Bitcoin is the dollar, I think, will pull back. And again, this whole correction, I've talked to you about how the dollar, people told us, oh, no, this isn't going to happen. There's no way. I've been warning you that Bitcoin's going to pull back to the 100 period moving average and the trend line eventually. Now, done that. So now it's a waiting game. Do we break the trend line, break the 100 period? But people ignored the strength in the dollar, which I've been talking about. And one of the reasons why we've seen this move is because of the strength and the recent breakout with the dollar. In order for things to be bullish for Bitcoin, you got to get the 10 and 20. You got to get the 10 back above the 20, and then you got to get the 10 and 20 back above the 50. Right now, they're in a bearish arrangement of the moving averages. That tells us we're either going down, or we're going sideways. Okay? So the crisscrossing back and forth of the moving average trio, which I call the 10, 20, and 50 period moving average, and moving average trio, again, are currently in a bearish arrangement. And we're currently rallying into a declining 20 period moving average. So again, this low is now extremely important, along with our 100 period moving average. Again, trying to bounce here. Can we hold these levels? Can the 56, 57,000 area be established as a bottom, or just below that level, maybe towards 50, maybe right around 55,000 or so, 54,000, 55,000, if we go a little bit lower than that and end up hitting the trend line. But again, right now, bounce off of the trend line. If I just zoom out, you can see what's going on here. Again, we've got the trend line from this low right here. Here, the red line, I've excluded the shadow, and we're bouncing off of that. We just slightly violated it. If we include the shadow right here, it's just slightly below that. Here we hit a low at the 56,000 area. Again, 56, 57,000 support, and slightly violated it, and again bounced off the 100 period. Here, it's just slightly below that. So I'm looking to see, do we bottom out with the low that we just had at 56,000, or maybe come down and hit the trend line and form a little tiny divergence on some indicators, try to bottom out? Or do we break this level? If you bounce off this level here, as we're doing, or go back and test it and bounce, and this trend line holds, that's bullish. You break the trend line, you're taking out the 100 period moving average and staying below it, that's bearish. So again, we could establish a Bitcoin bottom right here if we bounce off of this area of support, which I told you, again, with the highs, that we were eventually going to make our way down to the 100 period moving average, eventually to this trend line right here. We're now there. So now it's a moment of truth. Do we break or do we bounce? A bounce is bullish, a break is bearish. Now we've bounced off this trend line, but we still are hitting resistance. Let me show you the resistance. Look, we bounced off support. Now we're hitting resistance. I'll show you what has to happen in order for this bull flag to play out. And again, it's a bull flag, but if we break and lose the lower boundary of it, then pattern fails and you're getting yourself a lower high and a lower low and a break of support. So if the pattern is successful and we bounce here or go down to the trend line here, including the shadow, and then bounce, I'll show you where we need to clear. We're stalling at it right here, right now. Now here's the 56, 57,000 area that we're bouncing off of. Again, trend line excluding the shadow, but we've risen right back up to the resistance levels. This is momentum, and this is the trend. We got rejection at those levels previously after losing them over here. So again, rejection or losing the level, and then rejection, and then now coming back up to these levels again. If we get rejection here, and we go back and we break the trend lines, and you break the 100 period and you can't get back above it, that's bearish. But if we pull back and this low holds, or even we hit that other trend line and we bottom out again and buyers come back in, and you eventually clear these levels here and get back above them, and that's bullish. Momentum is still bearish, even though we're rebounding. Momentum is still bearish at the moment anyways, and we'll see if it changes. And then the trend is still bearish, and it really just shows that we've been going sideways. We've corrected now 23%. Could we form a bottom here? So I'll be watching. Do we bounce off the levels I'm showing you, clear these levels, and off to the races to the upper boundary of the flag again? And it was kind of sloppy. I marked clearly on the other one, but the upper boundary, maybe I need to go to art school or something there with my lines, but nevertheless, here it is. Again, if we get rejection here, then again, this level or just below this level at the trend line, including the shadow, it needs to hold, and the 100 period moving average. Even if we dip below the 100 again, it needs to hold. If we hold above the 100 period, that's bullish. If we break it and can't get back above it, that's bearish. That's really what it comes down to. But you got to be able to clear this area at the 65,500 range. You got to clear 65,500 in order to have the Bitcoin advance continue. I was right about the Bitcoin bounce at the trend line at the 56, 57,000 area. I said, we start breaking that other trend line, it's time to get bearish. Break it, hold below the 100 period. You bounce off these levels, time to get bullish. So that's really what it comes down to. Again, it is all about support and resistance, but we've been in this trading range. Now it's a moment of truth, and we need to be watching for clues. What is Bitcoin telling us? Is Bitcoin breaking down? Is Bitcoin breaking down out of the trading range, setting up for a bigger dump with a lower high, lower low? Or is it trying to bottom here, setting up a bull flag that's going to go up and give us a larger topping process, or establish a new bull market if you can get above 69,000, hold above it, stay above it, and not drop back below it? And really, that's what it comes down to. But we've been in this trading range. It's a trader's market right now. Bitcoin's not trending. It hasn't been trending for 2 months. Really, over 2 months right now. It's been going sideways. So do we get another trending move now to the upside, or a trending move to the downside? And it really is going to determine what happens here at this support level, really to what Bitcoin's next trending move will be, up or down. You picking up what I'm throwing down? And most signals remain bearish. Critical mass cloud. Again, we have Momentum still bearish. We have the trend still bearish, and momentum is negative. If we get back in positive territory here with momentum, you can flip this here. Then again, get it back above the 65,500 area. You start clearing 66, 67,000. That'll be bullish. You get rejection at these levels, and you start taking out the trend line of support that's bearish. So we'll be watching as the bulls and bears fight it out for control. But we've been in a trading range as we've been drifting lower, dropping by 23%. This was about a 21% sell-off. So again, do we find a bottom here? Bounce or do we break? Again, most of my signals are still bearish, even momentum signals. And again, signals for the most part are on sell signals. We need to get more traction back up if we're going to see this turn around. But again, signals have turned bearish. Momentum is still bearish and negative. So we'll need to turn that around if we're going to establish a bottom here or come down, hit the trend line and bottom out in form of diversions, or get a higher low if we turn down briefly. But we're going to be watching, can we make our way back up to this upper boundary and this 69,000 area? That's that dotted red line right there. Can we try to find a bottom here for Bitcoin? And if we do, can signals turn back to bullish? Will we get a buy signal if we can establish a bottom at this area of support, our 100 period and our 20-week moving average in the weekly time frame? Things like critical mass, they're in the weekly time frame, critical mass of support. In addition to stalling at the 50-period moving average, Bitcoin's stalling at VWAP resistance, and it took out VWAP support here from this low previously made over here. Last time we hit the 100-period moving average, but we bounced off of it, got back above it, off of the trend line of support. You break this level, you lose it. Then again, you get the support down over here at the 51,000 area. You've got VWAP support here at about 48,000. We move back towards the 200 period if we lose the 100 period moving average. So these are the support levels. And again, this VWAP support goes all the way back to the lows back over here. But here's the deal. And again, let me just bring it up close so you can see it. We've come down to VWAP support and we bounced. We went back up to VWAP resistance. Again, from the high here, we got rejection from that high. Okay, the purple line. Turned back down, tried to take out VWAP support, couldn't do it. Now we're back at VWAP resistance from the lower high that set up the red line right there. In addition to that, again, we've got this resistance area now here that we have to clear in order to be able to go back up and challenge the highs up here, which again, now make up the resistance zone with a lower high and the peak. That's the resistance zone way up here. Should we clear this area? And again, you've got to clear 60,000, 65,500, and this horizontal resistance here, 66, 67,000. You got to get above that area and clear 67,000 to be able to go back up. And again, we keep failing at 69,000 over and over and over again. Got to be able to get back above 69,000, which is right in this level right here, and be able to clear that and stay above it. So do we get above these levels or do we break down and take out the trend line of support? It is all about support and resistance. I'm going to show you VWAP support, VWAP resistance, and again, we bust them down. Then again, this level down here, the 200-day moving average and VWAP support all come into play. Bottom out at the 100 period moving average. Then you've got above the 100 period moving average. If you do that, that's extremely bullish, which will either give us a larger topping process, go back and test these highs for another lower high or a higher high, or a bull phase if we can clear 69,000 and stay above it. Showing you as we're going, we've been in this trading range and we're in the lower end of the trading range here. We're bouncing at the 56, 57,000 area. Possible Bitcoin bottom there with the bull flag if we can establish it as a bottom.